When I did the last episode of Hey Stella, which was only about a week and a half ago, it was just the beginning of the war in Ukraine. And not even in my worst nightmares, I would have imagined what was about to come. I don't even know if I can even have the right to say that I'm traumatized by watching all the images coming out of Ukraine and the killing of the Ukrainian people for no reason. And this is happening in our times. This is happening when no one in the world would have seen this coming. 2022, present time, the Russian Vladimir Putin has decided to go into a beautiful country as Ukraine and kill its people. The world is watching a nightmare, and it goes on. This is our second week that we keep watching the television with mothers and their children hiding and fighting for their lives. No play, no film, no script that would have been written. 50% of what is happening in Ukraine would have been believed as reality. It is something where, in my opinion, as this is only my opinion, from the point of view of someone who doesn't know much about politics, but I do know about artists and creators and musicians and their importance in the world. I was watching yesterday, as I do every day since the war, the invasion started by Vladimir Putin on the Ukrainians. And every time I think I'm not going to talk about it because it doesn't have to do with what I know. It's not my expertise to talk about it. President Zelensky, in his video to the world yesterday, he used the phrase and he called out in 2 words exactly what is happening in the world. And he used the 2 words, which are, there is deliberate murder by the Russians on the Ukrainian people. Deliberate murder. He did not call it murder, but he called it deliberate murder. And going back to my understanding of a phrase as powerful and as profound as that, immediately my mind went to, I heard this phrase before. Where did I hear this phrase? And the power of it. How is it that it came to mind when he called what is happening to his people to be deliberate murder, with the world watching? And I know that making links between the reality of what's happening in the world and the atrocities that are taking place right now, and linking it to a script or linking it to a play, is confusing, or it might not make any sense to some people, but to me it makes a lot of sense, because it was predicted that such deliberate cruelty, and that takes me to the play that was written many, many years ago, 75 years ago, by the playwright Tennessee Williams. He gave his words to the character Blanche DuBois when she at that time considers and says in the play to the other characters, cruelty is one thing. Cruelty is bad enough, but deliberate cruelty against one person, I'm not even talking about a nation, deliberate cruelty against one person, in her case, in the case of the play, A Streetcar Named Desire, written by Tennessee Williams, adapted into a movie and directed by Elia Kazan. When she says that cruelty is one thing, and I'm paraphrasing, but deliberate cruelty, and she's referring to herself, is an unforgivable sin. And we all thought, we who know the play, who have watched the movie, if you haven't watched it, you should watch it, now that it's important at this time in our lives. But when she said it, it just touched my soul and my heart in a way that I could feel her pain. I could feel her pain. I could feel her pain when she says it. She says it in the context of herself being judged, herself being in pain, herself suffering, and her struggle, her fight, her individual fight to be loved and accepted. Such a small scale in comparison to the scale of this war against beautiful, courageous, exemplary people to us all and to the world, who were going about their lives only 2 weeks ago, going to work, raising their children, sipping their coffees in coffee shops, walking on those beautiful streets. I looked on the internet at some of the pictures of what Kiev and the other cities looked like. I've never been privileged to go there, but just looking to see what those cities were like before the destruction. They were beautiful. The people are beautiful. And as the globe is watching, they are, for the first time, watching a nation resilient, watching a nation that stands up to fight, risking their lives, risking their children's lives for democracy, for liberty, for dignity, for themselves, but also for the rest of the world. If anybody who's far away from Ukraine may consider that this has nothing to do with them, or at some time, some point, they were considering that we don't know, we don't care what's happening across the ocean from us, we don't understand that it has nothing to do with us. That has changed completely. I think the globe, I think our humanity will forever be changed because of the destruction that Vladimir Putin is putting on the Ukrainians. They are deliberately murdering Ukrainian people, children, civilians, mothers, grandmothers. Everything, everyone that's inside is being bombarded. Even when I say what I'm saying right now, I have to take a double take to think, am I actually living this, or am I just allowing my imagination to go crazy? And I wish I could say it was allowing my imagination to go crazy and this was not the truth, but I was talking to you about a movie, or I was talking to you about a play that I had seen, or I was analyzing the importance of actors training and work. But unfortunately, I am not. When you think of one individual, one character that has now become a classic character as Blanche DuBois in A Streetcar Named Desire. When I read that play some years ago, when I saw the movie, when people go and see the movie, they will feel the pain of this one woman who's done some wrong things in her past, that she was trying to navigate her life, her journey in life. And she couldn't do any better than what she did. She did the best that she could. I'm talking about this character who, when I read the play, it brought me to my knees. It brought me to tears because of the powerful script that Tennessee Williams, as a brilliant writer, was able to portray and was able to give these words and the behavior, and he was able to understand humanity at a level of such specific details that a written text, a written play, a written script, and then watched will move you to tears, will pull at your heart and your soul, because we all can identify with deliberate cruelty. Who doesn't identify in your life? Who cannot identify in your life with deliberate cruelty? It might be from other people. It might be you yourself putting it on yourself because you don't believe that you deserve any more than to be put down. And that was just a play, that was just a movie, and it brought people to understanding that we are so much more alike in our one universal story. We all have one universal story. We're not different as much as everyone, as people might want to think we're different. Our universal story, and the most important story that we all share, and nobody can take that away from us, no matter the borders that people want to impose, such as Vladimir Putin, no matter how much he's trying to keep his people in the dark ages right now, to make them believe all the lies, that there's no war happening in Ukraine. He's doing a military operation exercise. No matter how much he's trying to disrupt and trying to redraw the borders on this globe, the humanity that we all share is the one universal journey called life. We all get born, we all get to hope, to live a good life. We all get to love, we all get to lose, we all get to grieve because we lose loved ones. We all get to hope to find love in our lives, to maybe some of us, some of you out there, to have children, to do the best and have a job that you're good at and you can do something in it where you can help society and just not yourself. We all share that journey of life. So no matter how much a madman as Putin comes on and tries to lie and use propaganda that was then adapted in America by some of the people in the Republican Party, because everything happens due to the possibilities that others create for something to happen. Putin did not wake up one morning and said, this morning I'm going to invade the Ukrainian people. He created his maneuver by first interfering in the elections when Trump was elected president. After that, he knew how to cyber attack people in America to give his propaganda here, and people started to hate each other in a democracy, in the experiment, the example of what democracy is in America. People started to yell at each other, neighbors in the same building with me that I've known for I don't know how many years. We get into the elevator and we're not even looking at each other because we're afraid that we might be on different camps and a fight is going to come out. He knew how to use people. He knew how to introduce his propaganda in a way that people in the United States of America were not familiar with it, as we were. Those of us from Romania who were living in the communist regime for so many years, and we kept waiting for the Americans to come and save us from the communist regime, from the dictatorship of Ceausescu. The Americans were open-minded and open-hearted. So they didn't understand to make the difference between the lies and the propaganda. They were believing that those are the truth because of their individual needs to be staying in a world that's not changing, because they were afraid for themselves in their individuality due to those lies. When you are being told that the minorities are going to take over the globe, when you are being told that the whites are not going to be respected because the minorities are taking over, when you are being fed all of the lies and all of the shit that Putin was feeding the Americans on the internet, people were for the first time seeing that, listening to that, especially when they saw the Republicans being on their side. So Vladimir Putin going on this deliberate, murderous journey of killing exemplary humans, such as the Ukrainian people, was planned due to what others allowed to happen in the world. Democracy was taken for granted in this country, in the United States of America, because we did not have to fight for it. It was fought by ancestors. It was fought by other people back years ago. So we got to enjoy it, but we didn't know the worth of it because we did not have to earn it. And now we're looking at President Zelensky, the global president, the president that all the other leaders could take at least 1% of his fight, of his belief, of his resilience, and learn. So I'm sitting and I'm watching all these explanations on different channels on television, and they're saying that because of Ukraine not being a NATO country, the other countries, including America, Romania, Poland, and all of the people that are doing a lot for the refugees. I believe it's 1.5 million of refugees who have left, who have fled under bombing, and some were not even able to flee their country because they were killed on the street. Like this one family that they showed the image of. They were just trying to leave. They were just trying to leave. And they couldn't because they were killed on the street. Like, you wouldn't even kill an animal like that. And we're watching and we're saying, well, we can't do more than what we're doing, the NATO countries, because Ukraine is not a NATO country. Where Ukraine wanted to be a NATO country and they fought for it. The people of Ukraine wanted to be part of NATO. That's why they had the Revolution of Dignity years back in 2014, I believe, and they won. They were able to fight. They came on the street then, and they were able to win, to get the president out, the president that was siding with Russia. They had to keep fighting for their liberty and for their people. And for us, if Ukraine, who's not part of the NATO, not because they don't want to be part of NATO and not because they didn't want to, but because they promised to be the people in the middle, the country in the middle between the East and the West, who are going to keep peace. That's what they were promised. They were promised, they were asked to give up the nuclear power that they had to maintain peace and to have assurance that Vladimir Putin is not going to go in and attack them. And here we are. That was not kept. That promise was not kept. Are you looking at the images? Are you seeing what's happening? Deliberate murder. The blood is going to be on so many hands, and not just the hands of Vladimir Putin, because for him to be able to have this go, a lot of things could have been differently for this not to happen. And due to individual need and greed for power and money and richness, the Ukrainian people are having to suffer. They're having to fight for all of us, for our future, for the future of our humanity. It just brought me to tears when every time I see him, every time I see any kind of interviews given by the people from his parliament, I'm brought to tears. But I was mostly brought to tears when I heard him say that there's deliberate murder happening on the Ukrainian people. And I go back to the acting, and I go back to the artist and the importance of all of us in the world, where we can all do something. We might not be able to take arms, and that's not what I'm saying, but we can all be doing something. I don't know what that is, to be honest with you, but there's so many organizations where we can donate money. And I know some people might say, who am I to talk about this? This is my only way that I can let out my sadness and my anger over what's happening, and hope that, I don't know, my small little podcast will make a difference in one person's understanding of what's happening, to be more than just Ukraine is over there, which I know people don't think of anyway. But if anybody can think that, oh, we're not being changed forever because of the invasion of Ukraine, then that's really wrong. That's really, really wrong, because our lives are changed forever. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not a political strategist. I'm not a political expert, but I do know that forever our lives, the globe is changed. I used to say that when the pandemic was going on and I was isolated in my house for a year. I was so scared of it. But now to see that this is coming to just be another day in the reality of the Ukrainians, where they're being shot and they're being bombarded in their country without having done anything. What have they done? They fought for freedom. They want to be living in dignity and integrity. And then you're being taken over by a madman who thinks the worst thing that happened in the world is the Soviet Union disbursement That was the worst thing that happened in the history of humankind. And nobody's doing more than what they're doing because they're staying so close to the regulations that were put in place without taking into consideration that the person, Vladimir Putin, is not keeping with the promises that he made for those regulations to be still in place. I mean, how does this work? I don't understand how this works. Oh, okay, so let's talk about why we cannot do no flight zone over Ukraine. We can because they're not NATO. And if we were to do that, the war would be a global one. It would be so much worse for all of us. The war is already a global one. If you're believing that you're going to keep Vladimir Putin from doing that, from making this even bigger than what it is, why are you believing him now? Somebody said it. Somebody said it on one of the news channels. If somebody tells you who they are for the first time, believe them. What more does he have to tell you of who he is by his action of deliberate murder in Ukraine? What more does he have to do for you to see who this man is? You're still applying the same regulations? The same regulations are being applied. But he's not keeping any of the prior promises or the rules from before. Just speak the truth. Just admit the truth. Don't come up with all these imaginative scenarios where you still see Putin as a character who is rational and could be rationally thinking. He is not. Going back to A Streetcar Named Desire, when Blanche DuBois, after not having a place to stay, having to give up the estate and having done some of the things that she was not proud of, she goes to her sister Stella and to Stanley, who was played by Marlon Brando, going back to why my podcast is called Hey Stella. She goes to them for help. She goes in without telling them the truth of her past history, the fact that she lost the estate, the fact that she was attributed with getting fired because she had a sexual relationship with a student. She doesn't want to give that background when she comes to her sister, not knowing that Stella's husband, Stanley, Marlon Brando, is of a nature, of an animalistic nature. When she is being treated by him after he finds out her backstory, so now he has at his disposal, because he wants to keep his wife's love for him. He doesn't want to share out of insecurity, because he knows he's not a man to be loved, and Stella loves him. And now that Blanche, the sister, comes in, he's afraid of losing his love from Stella. He mistreats Blanche and he rapes her in his house and the house of his wife, Blanche's sister Stella. And she calls that cruelty. Blanche DuBois calls that cruelty. And I think she even says it before the rape takes place, only because of his behavior, to cause her pain and to judge her for not having lived a perfect life, because he knows that he's not living anywhere close to a perfect life. When someone like Stanley Kowalski, the character from A Streetcar Named Desire, is putting down, is taking aim to deliberate cruelty, hurt Blanche DuBois' character, who's a personality of sensitivity, she's a dreamer. He does it the same way that Putin is doing it with the Ukrainian people, knowing he is a trained killer. He knew that the countries of NATO are not going to be able to do more because they are nice and they are polite and they're staying within their boxes of what is right to do in the world and not get involved. He knew that. He knew that. He doesn't deal well with sanctions. He doesn't care about sanctions. They're putting on him the polite way of punishment for someone who's a killer. Let me take Vladimir Putin and slap some sanctions on his intimate oligarchs and take their yachts away from Italy and from all over the world. And he's gonna stop the war. He doesn't give a damn. A man like that, the same way that Stanley Kowalski, and I'm talking about his character, not about Marlon Brando, the actor, but he was able to perfect the role so well that everybody's making the identification of Stanley with Marlon Brando with Stanley. That man took his aggression, as Putin takes his aggression on the Ukrainian people, knowing that he has a corridor of doing so because the NATO countries are going to stay as disciplined as ever. Why did Stanley Kowalski take his aggression on Blanche DuBois? Why has he not done it with someone else? Because he knew with her he was going to be able to do it. With a person of high sensitivity, filled with love, and still with hope, he snatched that hope away. You know where I think that President Zelensky gets his hope from? You know where I think that President Zelensky gets his ongoing fight from having trained as an actor first. And I know people out there are going to say, oh, what are you talking about? This is like so much bigger than that. It is so much bigger than that. But guess what? Acting and the training of actors teaches us. It teaches us that if you as a character on stage, in life, as a person on the screen, give up hope, the play stops. The character dies. I have learned so much myself as Mihaela from the characters that I was privileged to play on the stage of the actor studio. There were many days where in my life, as everybody else, I'm sure, had days when I did not want to get out. I did not want to get up because I was having the most hurtful day. And I encountered cruel people. And then I thought to myself, what was the character that I played that I can go to and pull a little bit of strength for to get me through the day? And then I would think, oh, this character that I played from Hunting Cockroaches, which is a play about this actress who moves to America from Poland, wanting to come to a democracy and to be free to express her artistic point of view, only to find out when she gets to America, yeah, she's free, but due to her accent, which is very, very heavy, no one wants to hire her as an actress because in America at that time when the play was written, everybody wanted on TV people with American accent. If you did not have the American accent, you were asked to go take lessons, as if the world was not made of people of diverse backgrounds and diverse accents. So the characters inform you as the human, and your humanity inform the characters. President Zelensky knows not to give up hope, because as soon as he gives up hope, for himself, he's going to give up hope for his people. And he is not doing that. Hope, hope, hope. Another beautiful moment, if you can call anything beautiful, is this glimpse of a pianist. There's this guy playing the piano. He's from Berlin, I believe, and he goes to all these different parts of the world during the worst times of the country and their people going through, and he plays the piano. He was for the last couple of days on the Ukrainian border with Poland, and as the refugees from Ukraine were coming in, he was playing outside in the cold his piano. Then he drives in a trailer. 2 years ago he was in America and he was playing at the site of George Floyd being killed. I mean, you're talking about artists, actors, act. I keep saying this. Act is not just for acting. Act is for action. Act is for activism in any way that we can do that. I don't know his name. I apologize for not knowing his name, but if you just Google him, he's just to see people kind of having a glimpse of hope that this will end soon. Having a glimpse of the rest of the countries and especially NATO waking up to understand that the regulations and the tactics have to be changed when a killer such as Vladimir Putin is deliberately murdering Ukrainians. Their president, President Zelensky, is telling the world, don't sit back and watch my people deliberately being murdered. Do something more, or their blood will be on your hands. Deliberate cruelty to deliberate murder. Everything links to why artists are of such importance. Thank you.